Imagine, one day you look in the mirror, but your reflection isn't looking back at you. Smiling. Robert Downey Jr. One night as he's coming home, his phone rings. He picks up the call and hears his own voice on the other end of the line. Do you remember me? This wasn't a fan. This wasn't a joke. This was the other me he buried years ago. And now the question is, who was hiding behind the mask? The answer is closer than you think. Los Angeles nights had long remained unchanged for Robert Downey Jr. Stars shining in silence and a deep emptiness. Fame, fortune, the endless applause of the audience. Everything that had once been at the center of his life. But now they had become only faint sounds in the background, like a wheezing siren, an unknownness that, although present, did not touch his feelings. That evening, he returned home alone. His modern but soulless villa overlooking the Malibu coast was dark and silent. The servants had long since left. The old movie posters hanging on the walls, Iron Man, Sherlock Holmes, Chaplin, stared at him. But there was no reverence in these glances, as if he were condemned by memories of the past. He threw his jacket on a chair like an unnecessary item and went to the mirror. His gaze wandered over his face, the lines of the years, and in the depths of his eyes an unfamiliar shadow. Suddenly he whispered to himself, "Who am I?" This question had been recurring to him every moment of his life in recent months, as if forcing him to face a truth he didn't want to know. Then something strange happened. His phone vibrated on the table. The number on the screen was unknown. He frowned and reluctantly picked up the phone. It was already 1:47 a.m. Hello? Silence. It only took a few seconds, but it seemed like an eternity. Finally, a voice came. His own voice. "Do you remember me?" Robert's breath caught. "Who are you?" he answered. The voice on the other end of the line spoke again, cautiously. "I am you, but you left me." He waited another moment, and the line was disconnected. He put the phone down heavily on the table. His hands trembled, his mind searching for explanations. It could only be a joke. Maybe it was the work of an obsessive fan, or it had to do with someone he knew from the distant past. But the unknown fear inside him made him look for other signs. Because that voice was not far away. It had no boundaries. It was his oldest voice. That night, he could not sleep. When the sun spread its delicate rays on the shore at dawn, Robert was still sitting in the same position in the living room. The cup of coffee was still in his hand, but the drink had cooled down even more, had lost its taste. The news was quietly streaming on the television. Suddenly, he saw his own face, like a frozen image, in the corner of the screen. Robert Downey Jr. in a new project, but his attention was no longer focused on the television. His gaze was fixed on a corner of the room plunged into shadow. There was something there. The shadow moved. "Who's there?" His voice echoed through the room in a full-throated scream. There was no answer, but from that moment on, everything began, never to return. All day long, he heard whispers. As he read the script, the words changed in an instant. The movements of his reflection in the mirrors seemed to roar, as if his reflection did not react at the same time as him. The most terrifying thing was the nights. Every night, the same nightmare. A dark, deep room. In the middle of it was an iron mask. A strange voice came from inside the mask. "Don't forget me. I am your true self." After those words, Robert would wake up screaming. Later, within a week, he accidentally found a box. This ancient box was in a meaningless corner of the villa's basement, perhaps in a place where it had not been opened for decades. It was covered in dust, and on it was written in cursive writing a date, 1999. Robert had not forgotten that year, the struggle with addiction, the hardships he had endured during difficult times, the pain of prison life, lost hopes, and stormy nights. Although he hesitated for a moment to open the box, he finally gathered the courage. Inside the box was an old, half-clean, half-faded notebook. The surprising thing was that the notes in the notebook were written in his own handwriting, but the lines reminded him of nothing. Robert began to read. The writing was more cruel than frightening. "Today I heard that voice again. It is me, but it is stronger than me. I must get rid of it, or it will destroy me completely." These notes, which began with a hot update became so chaotic and furious in the later pages of the book that it was even more difficult to read. The iron mask holds me in place. People love Iron Man very much, but no one knows what is under the mask. Robert closed the notebook in a shudder. His heart beat faster, and he experienced a few seconds of complete loss. It is impossible, he tried to convince himself, but a faint feeling burning deep in his brain told him otherwise. A dark truth that he had long buried was about to come to light. Shortly after midnight, the phone rang again. The same unfamiliar number called him again, but this time he refused to answer. The phone unexpectedly answered itself. At that moment, the lights in the entire house went out and the screen suddenly lit up. Robert, who was standing in front of the television, saw his reflection. But this reflection was not ordinary. His eyes were completely black, empty like a deep well that showed no mercy. "You didn't save me," the being on the screen said in a quiet voice. "You just turned me into a roll." The four walls suddenly began to shrink as if they were being squeezed. Robert shouted from the depths, "No! This is just an imagination." But the face, full of a strange smile under angry lips, could not remain silent anyway. "No, Robert. This is reality. Only a reality where sadness is not accepted." With a jolt, the television shattered, and there was no trace of the sounds that had filled his ears for days. Silence reigned in the room. Robert fell to the ground next to him. His eyes were the only moving part in this silent world, filled with tears. What he realized at that moment was completely different. This was not just ordinary fear, but the return punishment of a part of his life he had been running away from. And this was just the beginning. Robert Downey Jr. didn't get out of bed until morning. The broken TV screen was still on the floor. The glass shards reflected the light as if thousands of eyes were watching him. The house was no longer an ordinary shelter. This space had become a manifestation of his mind. Its peace was broken only by the rhythmic beating of his heart. He whispered to himself, "Get a grip. You're an actor. You can separate fantasy from reality." But another voice inside him added quietly, almost in a whisper, "No, you're just good at hiding." He stood up with heavy steps. He was afraid to look in the mirror, but he had to. He turned on the bathroom light. He saw his reflection in front of the mirror, but something was different. The reflection was smiling. Robert was not. An unbearable feeling overwhelmed him, and he nervously slammed his fist into the mirror. At that moment, a quiet, cutting voice was heard from the reflection. "Listen to me. I am the shadow of every step you have taken since the past." Robert immediately stepped back, shaking his head. "You are not real." The answer was not long in coming. Was Iron Man real, Sherlock, or you? The deep excitement caused by this last question hung in the room. That day, Robert was supposed to go to the studio. Test shots for the new film awaited him. Everyone was accustomed to his usual professional, balanced, carefree manner. Without knowing what was going on inside, everyone continued to believe his smooth laugh and witty jokes. Putting on the mask again would not be difficult for him. But everything changed when he stepped in front of the camera. It was the first time that the words in the script did not fit his tongue. The director asked in a worried voice, "Robert, is there a problem?" He shook his head slowly and replied, "No, I'm just sleepy." But when the shooting began, he tried to speak and nothing happened. The sounds that were emitted did not belong to him. Instead, another voice, as if coming from afar, said clearly, "I knew this story from the beginning." Silence fell in the studio. Everyone froze. Robert did not even move his lips. A quiet voice continued, "This role is mine, because this life was mine." The director suddenly shouted, "Stop! What is this?" Robert knelt down and put his hands on his head. The voice came out shakily. "Excuse me, At that moment, the image on the monitors changed. Two Roberts appeared on the live broadcasts. One was on his knees, shaken. The other was standing straight, a look of fury, a quiet hardness in his eyes. A wave of excitement spread through the studio. "This is not a montage," someone shouted. "How is this possible?" The other Robert on the screen began to speak, looking into the camera. "Years ago, you left me here, in the depths of fear." "Shut up," Robert shouted. The shadow continued with bitter restraint. "You did not escape. You simply turned your back on me. You sacrificed me." Suddenly, the screen went black, and Robert opened his eyes in the hospital room. The doctor's conversation could be heard in the distance. Dissociative disorder, severe psychological trauma, long-buried memory. As he stared blankly at the ceiling, his attention turned to the mirror beside him. Nothing had changed there. Everything bordered on dead stillness. But this situation seemed even more terrifying. Night had fallen. As the hospital lights dimmed, a chill filled the room. Small cracks appeared in the mirror's surface, and as the cracks widened, another being emerged from within, another Robert. The appearance was exactly the same face, the same body. But there was a hard emptiness in his eyes. His words came in a terrifying voice. "Now we can talk." "What do you want?" Robert whispered. "Justice," the shadow replied. "You don't understand. I've changed," he said defensively. The shadow stepped closer, its gaze piercing like poison. "No, you've only won more applause." The moment Robert placed his hand on his chest in a chilling silence, time seemed to freeze. In the silent darkness, only these words could be heard: "Accept me or carry me forever." The walls trembled and the mirror shattered completely. Robert's scream was firm and sharp, but in the morning everything had changed. The hospital room was empty, the bed was made, the monitors were turned off, no one had disappeared. The press talked about it for days. Robert Downey Jr. disappeared. The last footage was recorded in the studio. Mysterious incident. Time passed, months followed one another, and one day strange news broke. A new film had been released. Robert Downey Jr. was again in the lead role. But this film was completely different. There was no smile on his face, no subtle humor, no familiar energy from his old roles. His eyes stared at the audience from the screen, as if looking straight into their souls. The last scene of the film was especially touching. The camera moved closer to his face and he said in a low, mumbling voice, "I took off the mask." The hall fell into a moment of meaningful silence. Immediately after these words, a strange image appeared on the screen. For a very brief moment, two shadows appeared. The first shadow was far away, lost and silently standing behind. The second shadow was in front of him. It seemed calmer, deeper, and strangely complete. No one could solve this mystery. Who really played the role in that film? The Robert Downey Jr. we know? Or the side of him that he had always hidden? Maybe it wasn't just about him. Maybe it was showing another side of the mysterious shadow inside each of us.